Hey guys, it's Miss Amanda and I'm here with a new animal. This week's animal is a large mammal that has reddish brown skin and it lives in the Arctic on land and in the water, which just means it's very cold there. Do you have any idea what animal it could be? A walrus. Walruses have these long whiskers on their face, these flat flippers, and they have these enormous tusks that come out of their mouths that poke down. So these tusks are super big. Both the males and the females have these tusks, and they're actually just teeth from their mouth. And they're going to use these teeth to sometimes help them pull themselves out of the water. They're going to use these tusks, and they're going to push down on ice, and they're going to pull up their body. These tusks are so useful for them because they just keep growing and growing as they get older, and they can grow up to 3 feet. We know some animals that are even smaller than 3 feet and can grow up to 3 feet, but just the walrus's tusks will grow up to 3 feet long. So they use them to help themselves get out of the water and to dig into ice, and they also use them to punch holes into ice. So like I said earlier, walruses live on land and underwater. So when they're underwater, they still actually are holding their breath because they are mammals, and mammals have lungs just like us, and we have to breathe air. So when they're underwater, sometimes they use their tusks to poke holes in the ice above them, so then they have holes to breathe the air while they're still underwater. While they're underwater, they can stay under there for about 30 minutes. When walruses aren't under the water looking for food, they can be on land. So they can either be on some beaches or you can find them on ice in the middle of the ocean. They like to be social animals, so they like to hang out with other walruses, and they hang out in a group called herds. Just like a bunch of animals group of animals are known as herds, kind of like we learned about with cows. So when they're hanging out with these other walruses, there can be thousands of walruses on the beach. They might not all fit on one sheet of ice, but if they have a large enough area, they're going to fit as many as they can. All walruses are known as carnivores, not a herbivore, a carnivore, which means instead of being a vegetarian and eating veggies, it means they like to eat meat. Some examples of foods that some walruses may try to snack on are clams, squid, fish, octopus, and sometimes even some seals. Walruses can live up to 40 years old and then can weigh up to 1.5 tons. That is ginormous. Alrighty, now that we learned a little bit more about walruses, let's now make our own walrus. So today we're going to make our own walrus out of cupcake liners. So I am going to use one big one, and then I'm going to use 3 little ones. If you don't have 3 little ones, you can just cut your big ones. If you don't have cupcake liners, you can just make circles, whatever you want. I'm also going to make my tusks out of toothpicks. And I'm going to need some glue, some markers, crayons, whatever you want to use to color, and some googly eyes. Maybe not those. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color in all of my cupcake liners, brown or reddish brown, whatever color you want. So I flattened all 4 of my cupcake liners and I colored them all brown. But before I glue them somewhere, I am going to make a sheet of ice on a blue piece of paper, it doesn't matter, where my walrus is going to hang out. So I'm actually just going to rip it and I'm going to glue it to the bottom. Okay, now I have ice on my bottom, and I'm going to take my biggest one, and I'm going to put him on first. going to put a small one. I'm going to put it on top of the big one, and I'm going to make it his head. Now for my flippers, remember I said they had flat flippers. So I'm going to take mine, I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to glue them on right over here on the sides. Okay, so instead of folding my flippers, I decided to cut them in half. I glued them, and then I went right ahead and I finished up all his facial features. So remember, we talked about 2 long tusks. So I took some toothpicks and I tucked them under his mouth. And then I put some long whiskers, and I used some pipe cleaners. You can use string, you can just draw them on however you want. You can either draw on his eyes or glue them on. And then you can add whatever you want on top. Think about the Arctic, think about some cold weather. If you were to see a walrus outside and he was already sitting on a sheet of ice, how would the sky be? How would the background be? What other animals would you see? So I hope you guys have fun making this walrus, and I hope you learn a little bit more.